Welcome back, all you demons and dragons, to Blastoise's Lair for another episode of MetaZoo gameplay, strategy, and deck tech. Please do me a favor and like and subscribe below if you like this deck or any of the other builds that we reviewed on this channel. And also, all of the information on how to play this deck, as well as all of the other decks that we've reviewed, is available at www.blastoiseslairtcg.com. All right, on this profile, we're headed back into the forest. We got a little dual aura deck, the Spooked Deers. This is a terrific take at a spirit and forest dual aura deck. We will call on the forest spirits to torment opposing casters and buff the almighty white stag. Herds of not deer and deer women are included to flank the stag, while Achusa takes care of tough beasties, and Blue Mist allows you in a little extra time if you need, while you rely on an array of natural forest spells to work through your chapter and mill through those pages to find what you need, and a few unexpected add-ins like Morpheus and Tribal War Cry that'll ensure your opponents wish they never stepped onto your spooky spirits. Okay, to take a quick look at the deck profile, we rated this one a 3 out of 5 on control and a 3 out of 5 on aggression. It's a pretty middle of the road and honestly a very versatile deck. A lot of low cost beasties along with the double neutrality totality is going to let you hopefully ramp up really quickly. There's a few spells, a few of the functions of the cards which you'll need to wait on a little bit more of a control feel. But there's enough firepower here that you can you can be a bit aggressive. And like I said, the ramp on this is 5 out of 5. Given a plethora of aura, artifact essence, and a lot of low cost beasties and spells. From a budget standpoint, oh sorry, we skipped ahead. So from a consistency standpoint, we gave it a 4 out of 5. From a dual aura standpoint, that's typically, about as good as you're gonna get, just because they do break down sometimes. But once again, given that we have two neutrality, 2 prism, and the old books feel really good from an aura kind of fuel standpoint. And lastly, on the budget, also ranked it at a 3 out of 5 here. Obviously, the prisms are going to be the high ticket items here, but some of the other ones like Blue Mist and Growth might be a little pricey too. Let's do a little beastie breakdown and look at a little closer at these deers. We really crafted this deck around the strong abilities of the White Stag. Given it's only a 2-drop for 1 neutral and 1 spirit, this will be an early game beastie if you get a decent draw. With a base of 35 life points, 20 hit points, White Stag is immediately buffed by his own attack, which states, for each spirit beastie you can control with a Forest Terra bonus, this attack deals 10 damage. So make that a 30 life point, 30 hit point beastie. With a Forest Terra in play, that ups to 50, and if you find some more of your deer friends, which we'll get to in a moment, that's an additional 10 hit points for each. But wait, that's not all. The kicker is the contract ability, which basically says if you control another White Stag, you can take a 2 or less cost spirit beastie and a with a Forest Terra from your afterlife into your chapter. And given that all of your stag and deer beasties are spirit, 2 cost or less, this effectively is going to trigger potentially multiple times if you have a lot of beasties that have already been killed off. So White Stag is quite the beastie, but is definitely buffed by some of its friends here. Not Deer, who's a great sidekick to White Stag, as he's obviously, as we already stated, a Forest Terra bonus, is going to help give the stags a +10, but also the ability in its attack, Bloodied Claws, which allows you to send a beastie from your limbo into your afterlife, which is an important step to set up White Stag's contract ability that we just spoke to. So Not Deer also has some other terrifying abilities, the most powerful potentially being its Arena effect, which gives all other beasties with Forest Terra +10 hit points if Forest is active. So it's almost acting as an additional buff on top of what the White Stag is already producing, and those add up really quick. Okay, so the Deer Amigos here wouldn't be a complete, obviously, without the Deer Woman, so we had to include her. Honestly, I think this is a very overlooked beastie and also fits in perfectly to this build thanks to the 4 Terra bonus and the low cost and neutral cost. So Deer Woman is a 35 life point beastie, but is buffed to 55 life points with wearing flowers as a 4th wall item, as well as swinging for 30 hit points plus 2 poison, which will inflict an additional 30 damage over the next 2 turns. It also has a much higher plus 30 bonus for Forest Terra, plus the ability Nature's Curse, which will deal 50 damage to any beastie with a status effect, presumably someone that you've already set up with an attack on the previous turn and poisoned with the Deer Woman, or that you've already slept with Lechuza. So really great beastie there to finish it off, at least from the kind of deer trio here. Lechuza was also added for some extra help from above with some super useful abilities to deal with tougher beasties that the buffed up deer might not be able to get to. And last but not least, Blue Mist. Blue Mist is also a great beastie, also amazing artwork by Poncho. In the absence of a real true board wipe spell, which we'll get to in a moment, the inclusion of Blue Mist is important because it's going to allow you to play a bit more paced and conservatively if needed, thanks to its arena effect, which will deal 100 hit points to an opposing caster with more life points at the start of their turn. Those are sinister spirits indeed. Okay, looking into the spell breakdown, there's some expected spells and some surprises in this build. So some pretty straightforward from a forest perspective, with a full playset of Growth and Germinate along with Wood Devil to try to get the most out of milling through our deck and set up some of our deer synergies. We've reviewed both Germinate and Growth in a few other of our builds, but it's going to be great, Germinate specifically in this deck, because once again, all of our beasties have Forest Terra bonus, and that's going to allow us to play them for, or contract it for 1 less after we play Germinate. So another reason why the ramp is 5 out of 5 on this build. There's definitely a lot of synergies there. So the unexpected or the surprises come with some, hopefully some quick relief for tough beasties with Morpheus, but a little extra juice to boost up your deers even more. So Tribal Warcry here is a little bit of the secret sauce, and we'll go over why. It's a fantastic spell. Honestly, I rarely use it because I typically try to find beasties which already have tribal boost built in, so it's auto enacted without having to pay the additional aura cost. But despite that, this build fits this spell perfectly thanks to the fact that we have 8 deer beasties. Side note, unfortunately, not deer is actually not a deer, but is a beastie demon, so that kind of makes sense. But if you're able to set up the board to a point that you have multiple white stags or Deer Woman, this means it's going to be a pretty big boost on top of the arena boost that you're already getting from the white stag and not deer potentially. So to go over Tribal Warcry, it says equip this page to target non-token beastie that does not have tribal boost. Equipped beastie gains plus 10 life points and plus 10 attack damage, for every other beastie in the arena. Equipped beastie is considered to have tribal boost. So once again, if you add those up, one example we have here of a viable gameplay state. If you think about it, and you had 2 white stags, 1 not deer, and 1 deer woman on the board, the white stag is already boosted for plus 40 due to the arena ability and is now swinging for 60. If you play tribal boost for only 1 aura, that white stag is now going to be a 55 life point, 80 hit point spirit. And the next turn, say you happen to play another deer woman or white stag, that white stag is going to beef up again to now a 65 life point, 100 hit point beastie, and it kind of goes on and really can get out of control. And the kicker is, if you had a Forest Terra, which we don't have a Forest Terra in this build, that not deer is now up to a 65 life point, 130 hit point beastie, which is really tough to manage, especially when you can have multiple beasties kind of set up that way. All right, next we will review Aura, Artifact, and Terra for the build. So this is the first time in a build that we've used two neutrality totality, but definitely feel like it's warranted given the number of neutral and dual cards in the spellbook. We also doubled up on Prism Auras, of course, and included an Old Book's Crying Tree, which, you know, helps the overall theme with both the forest and spirit. It might seem like overkill with two neutralities and two prisms, but the ramp is really important on this build. So, you know, I think it's worthwhile to include. As shown by the example above, you want to get the beasties out ASAP to kind of start boosting them up to the point where they're too big for opposing casters to kind of overcome them. And you'll need all that fuel that you can get. From an aura breakdown perspective, we obviously lean pretty heavy here on spirit with 6 versus only 2 for forest, given that all beasties but Wood Devil and spirit or all beasties are spirit except for Wood Devil. So honestly, forest is just kind of a splash when you take a step back and look at it for some of the added ramp to get the beasties, and also you know, to kind of to get those beasties out quicker via germinate, but also work through your spellbook with growth. Okay, last here we'll hit on some side deck and alteration options here. So as we just hit on, well, there's a million ways to go with this build, which is why I love it. It's a really good base, honestly. But first off, we just hit on the 2 neutrality, the multiple artifacts and prisms. So, you know, it's a 42 card deck, so there'd be kind of some tweaks here with the aura and artifacts you could get down, or swap out some other cards for sure. Of the beasties, the Lechuzas are nice to have for sure, but ultimately expendable if you want to emphasize some different game strategies or beasties, which also might meld really well with these, like Morgana or maybe Walking Sam. We definitely went heavy on the beasties and light on the spells. Typically with spirit decks, I go heavy on the spells because they're so fantastic, but this ratio made sense given the White Stag and Deer buffs and the Tribal War Cry inclusion. But if I were to go more spell heavy, I would definitely include more Morpheus, potentially Possession, Fetish Artifact, or more costly Permanent Possession. Those are all amazing spells on the spirit side. And honestly, I just pulled these out too before I did the video. These were in while we were playtesting from a forest standpoint. Invigorate. The next beastie you can track this turn with a forest or daylight Terra bonus, costs 1 less, aura, and has down to a minimum of 1 and enters the arena awakened. This beastie gains 10 life point, 10 attack damage. So once again, all of your beasties have forest bonus Terra, so this would almost act as, you know, like a lightning in a bottle with a +10/+10 bonus on top of all the bonuses we already talked about. That's also kind of a really interesting play there. But the other things, if you were to go more of a spirit route, you could also even play Resurrection from the Afterlife if you wanted, but thinking tactically from a spell perspective, you know, Ghost Forest would also play perfectly in here, given the fact that that spell turns into a Forest Terra after being utilized for its spell abilities. And we obviously didn't include the Terra here. So, you know, a lot of different ways that you could go depending on, you know, how you prefer to play. Okay, that is going to wrap up this deep dive into the Spooked Deer deck profile. I hope you enjoyed this dual aura deck, looking at the Spirit and Forest kind of fusion here. Like I said previously, please be sure to like and subscribe below if you liked any of the information here. And also, please be sure to check out the information on how to play this deck and all of our other decks at www.blastoiseslayertcg.com. And next episode, in honor of all of the water tower announcements and everything else going on, we will provide another look into a water tower eligible deck with a few different tweaks from the Revenge of the Frogman, which we reviewed last week. So please be sure and check back for that next time. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you then.